What's up? Happy New Year's Eve, and I just want to make a quick little video that I thought I've touched on before, but I don't think this gets talked about enough. And this is mainly going to be for the men out there, not for the women, and I'll explain why in a sec. This video is, I wanted to make a quick little video on the tips of how to transition from high school to college. And the reason why it's mostly for the men is because the men's implements from high school to college change, whereas the women's don't really change at all. They always throw a 4K and a 1K. But these are some quick little tips. Now, I like to think I'm very well versed in this, having coached at a community college for 2 years, mainly coaching people coming straight from high school to community college, having competed at a D1 level for 5 years, I would maybe consider myself an elite high school disc thrower as well, if not very good as well. So, and coming straight from high school to D1. So, I would like to think I did something right in my transition. And I'll explain some tips of how, one, you can look better to colleges, and two, how to make a transition easier from high school to college. So, let's get the easy tips out of the way. If you're in high school, throw overweight implements. All right? That was probably the best thing I ever did in high school. Even if it was just stand throws with like a 14 or 16 pound shot. Anything heavier than the 12. Even maybe not a 68, but like a 14 to like a 16 pound. You don't throw like an 18 or a 20 pound. That's for college stuff. Um, but I would say the minimum to do that is stand throws. And with discus, throw the 2K or a 1.75, but most probably a 2K. Most high schools probably won't have a 1.75K disc, but yeah, I would say even just stand throws, just to get used to throwing the heavier implements. All right, because going from a 12 pound to a 16 pound is one like very mentally taxing because it's so much heavier. All right, it's 6 pound. No, oh my god, my math. 12, 4 pounds. 4 pounds heavier. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. But it's way heavier. All right. And for discus, going from a 1.6 to a 2 kilo, I mean, when I transitioned, I had to drastically change how I threw with the 2K compared to how I threw the 1.6. All right. I didn't actually have to change my technique that much. Well, I did just because I improved on my technique. But like my first year of college and high school, pretty much the same technically, maybe a few little tweaks here and there. But my transition was pretty easy for the simple fact I actually in high school barely ever touched the high school implements. I barely ever threw the 12 pound shot or the 1.6K disc. I actually almost always threw a 16 and a 2K. So when I went to college, I was already very well versed into into all that. So it made my transition very easy. And I would say don't do anything more than a stand throw with the heavier implements unless you're strong enough. Because I mean, you want to do well in high school because I mean, the colleges are going to go based off your high school marks. So you want to those marks want to look good for colleges, you know. So that's my first tip. So I would say minimum stand throws just to get used to throwing the heavier implements. All right? And you can just do it after practice. It doesn't have to be like it helps to do overweight and underweight cycles in high school. I did that. One, because you're going to be doing that in college. And hopefully, if you have a competent program, I have really not heard of many college programs that don't use underweight and overweight implements. But that's a big help as well. And only if you're like strong enough, I would say I won't even base it off strength numbers. I'd base it off distance. So like if you're like a 50 plus foot shot putter and like maybe like a 150-foot plus discus thrower in high school, you can do like full. You can probably do full throws, so like a 16-pound shot and 2K disc, and it won't screw up your technique that much. Maybe depending on your strength levels. It didn't really with mine, even though I was relatively weak. Um, so maybe it won't for you. Maybe Bowl's also pretty technically sound for a high schooler, in my opinion. So, um, yeah, I would say the biggest thing you could do is throw overweight implements. Now, that's like the most typical answer you hear. Here's a couple others that I've been finding throughout my years. Start throwing hammer and javelin early. All right. I know you in javelin. You can't compete in that. High school, you can actually compete unattached. In like the off seasons and stuff, and like the winter and whatnot. I mean, check with your head coach and your coach and make sure it's perfectly fine and like you're following all the rules because there are regulations about that, about competing unattached and stuff. But I would say, and during the summer as well, um, go to like your local junior college or your local college. A lot of them hold clinics and stuff, um, and just learn how to throw hammer and jav because that will look really good to colleges. Because most colleges struggle to find hammer and jav throwers right out of high school that actually like know kind of a little bit about it. So instead of starting from scratch, it looks better to at least know how to do like the basic stuff. Even if you can't do them, at least know what to do. I would say the minimum is just look at videos of hammer and jav throwers. And you can find on YouTube like online clinics and stuff like that as well. But that will look really good to colleges, all right? And let them know that too. If like they reach out to you, reach out to them. Tell them that you like are training on the side with a little bit of hammer and jav, all right? Because that will look super good. It might put you over the edge over someone else that they're recruiting. All right? So that's my second tip to you. All right? My third tip is don't bug colleges. All right? Especially if you're going to like a D1 level, if you want to go to a D1 level. All right? Because they get so many recruits so many times a day, and just bugging them and like emailing them, it's like, oh, am I on the team and like stuff like that. They're not going to want you because they don't want to work with people like that because they don't want to get bugged all the time, especially if you're emailing the head coach. You would not believe how hard it is to be a head coach in college. All the stuff that you have to go to and all that. Speaking to different head coaches, they have enough stuff going on in their lives that they don't need to hear, like, just be bugged by a high schooler. All right. If All right. If they really want you, they will reach out to you. All right. But if they're not responding to you, give it like a couple weeks and then maybe email back or something like that and see if they've considered or something. All right. But don't bug them at all. All right. Don't like email them every day or text the coach every single day or whatever because they're not going to want you. Nobody wants to be annoyed during their job. All right. So that's my third tip is don't bug the coaches. All right. 4, if you think you want to go on to the next level, you don't need to go D1. All right. Like I went D1, but that was just because I was good enough to. But just because you're not good enough to, like even if you are actually terrible at throwing, a lot of like community college or like D3 schools may actually want you if you're smart, all right? Because what happens, and a lot of people don't talk about this part, is that some people, like, if you aren't the best person on the team or, like, the worst person in your event on the team in college, and you may be asking, like, oh, like, I'll give you an example, like a made-up example. Like say like you have a team of like 60-foot shot putters, and there's one guy throwing 40 feet, and you're like, why is this dude on the team? Because he may have like a 4.0 GPA. All right, and what happens is the teams get funding, um, some funding based on the GPA of the athletes, of the overall GPA of the team. All right, so colleges will keep you on the team if you're really smart and have a high GPA, because that helps the whole team. All right, so you're a student athlete. All right, and what the colleges look for is people graduating and getting smarter. So they care more about the academic side because that's where they get a lot of their funding. All right, and they want graduation rates to be good. All right, so I would say that's a very important and very overlooked aspect in what colleges look for. All right, and also if you're a big dum dum but you throw far, that doesn't matter, because if you can't make you have to have a certain minimum GPA to compete in college, and I forget if like every team is different. It's usually like a 2.0 in college. All right, which is not the same as a 2.0 in high school. It's a little harder, but it shouldn't be that hard at all. But if you're below a 2.0, but you're like a 200-foot discus thrower, I mean, one, a team will probably still want you in high school. But two, that doesn't help them because you won't be able to compete. You'll be on academic probation. So even if you're like an Olympic level thrower, but you can't compete for them, who cares? Because you can't be the Olympic level thrower on their team because you'll just be sitting there. Actually, you won't even be there. You'll just be in study hall the damn time instead of practicing because you won't be able to practice with them. So that doesn't help them. So I would say the bare minimum, at least don't be stupid. At least have like over a 3.0 GPA in high school. All right, that's not that hard. Okay, I had a 3.8 GPA in high school. I never even opened a textbook. Okay, so just do your homework and listen to your teachers, and then get like I don't know what 3.8, like a B average. Okay, and that'll be just fine. And then throw far. All right, but yeah, just my fourth or whatever tip this is. My next tip: just don't be stupid. All right. Okay, just I've seen so many great athletes over the years be kicked off the team and whatnot because they're just stupid and they just don't do their schoolwork. All right, and they just waste potential. And I've seen people lose scholarships. All right, just because you're on scholarship does not mean. In fact, there's more pressure put on you if you're on scholarship, because that's funding that the team gets. All right, that comes out of the team's budgets is scholarships. All right, so they're basically hiring you. They're basically looking at it as a job, and they invest in you. All right, so if you're on scholarship, they're going to be more pressure on you to get good grades and to perform. All right, so I never had that because I was a walk-on, because I wasn't the best person on my team except my last year, but that was just because of default and every good person graduated. But we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, that's a big thing I see, especially at the community college level, is that a lot of people, even at the community college level, like I see like teams, like I've seen some teams even lose like the track and field programs just because their GPAs were so horrendous that the school just shut down the program. All right, I've seen that. All right, so don't be that person. All right, and just get C's. Okay, come on, it's not that hard. Please, like they don't ask you to have a 4.0 GPA. Okay, but yeah. So if you're really smart but not that good at throwing, they might still want you. All right? So don't lose hope on that if you still want to compete at the next level. All right? And then I had one other. Oh yeah. Show that you're committed to colleges. All right? Colleges always ask around. They always ask the high school coaches. they sometimes, whether you know it or not, like sit in on high school practices. I know that sounds a little creepy. Um, Not really practices, but like meets and stuff, and they want to see how you conduct yourself. All right, because in college you're gonna be treated as an adult. All right, you're not gonna have people like telling you what to. Well, okay, you're gonna have people telling you what to wear because you have to have the same uniforms and whatnot. But okay, and there is a dress code usually. Um, but like they won't treat you like a little kid. They're gonna expect you to be mature. All right, on a college team, because you know you're representing the team, and if you act a fool, people are gonna be like, "Oh, that team's stupid," or like, "Oh, that team's like not taking this seriously," and they won't, and then they'll lose recruiting power. All right, so that reflects bad on the school. So when you're at meets and stuff, especially big meets like Arcadia or Mount Sac or Nationals or CIF, conduct yourself like a professional. Conduct yourself like a mature adult. All right, because these college coaches are looking at that. All right, and even if you're good, but you're acting like a damn fool, that could affect them not wanting you over someone else. All right, even if you throw further than someone else. All right, and so conduct yourself at meets professionally. All right, don't act like you have fun and stuff, but like really big meets and stuff, where like college coaches will be at, like CIF, Arcadia, Mount Sinai, like really big meets where like the top people in the state and the country will be at. College coaches go there all the time. All right, so they usually don't go to like dual meets or something like that unless they're really heavily recruiting someone. But especially at those meets, pretend like you're being watched by colleges that want you, all right? And act accordingly, all right? And then my next piece of advice would be what was it? Oh, yes. Keep a training journal, all right? And this is something that doesn't get talked about enough. But I never had a training journal in high school, all right? But over the years, I've noticed that a lot of colleges, and I started keeping one now. Well, my last year in college, and nowadays, is the importance of a training journal. Um, One, because it will just help you throw further because you won't have to remember like cues and stuff like that. Um, I usually just write down my cue, like the cues that I'm working on, and what to work on next session, what didn't work, what worked, all that. So, and then you can write down like how you're feeling, all that, and then you can add like what, like if you had a bad practice, why you think you had a bad practice and stuff like that. Because there's a couple reasons why you should have the training journal. Is one, because you won't repeat mistakes that you made. Two, you won't have to remember all the cues because you have them written down. Three, you can see the improvements or not improvements that you made, so you can see your training trends and see, oh, this month I did terrible, but then this month I did good, and why is that? And then compare those. All right, and three, the reason why this applies to this kind of conversation is because it just looks it to the outside, even if you're just doodling in it or whatever, to the outside, which don't do that. Actually take it serious, but um, it looks like to colleges like you're actually committed to this and like you're actually like putting in the extra effort to do that. All right, so that's something very important for colleges is to show that you're committed, especially if you're on scholarship. All right, because if you're on scholarship, they want you committed. All right, and they'll be on your ass about that. All right, so about commitment if you're not. All right, I've seen nationally ranked people lose scholarships because they just weren't committed because they were just lazy and just got by on raw talent and didn't put in that extra effort. All right, so that was one of the reasons why I was really valuable to my college team was because I would get there really early, clean out all the rings of all the water and all that, get everything set up before my coach even arrived there. all right, and was ready, warmed up, and ready to go, all right, and then I would have a list of questions to ask my coach and all that, and it showed commitment, all right, and it showed that I just wasn't there for the ride, all right, and you don't have to do that. It's just these are all just recommendations. You don't have to do any of this stuff, but this is just stuff that looks good to colleges, all right, because they don't want to waste time coaching someone that doesn't want to be there. All right, because that's not fun for either party. All right, so if you're just there for scholarship, they're, but you don't put in that extra work, they're not gonna like you. It's not gonna be a very fun environment. All right, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you are not 100% sure that you want to go on to the next level, don't. All right, you got to be fully committed. All right, because college training is way different than high school training. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, and then my next piece of advice, I keep forgetting, I should write this down. This is all off the top of my head. But oh, man, what was it? If I think about it, I'll tell you later in some other video or whatever. But I think that might be it for all my tips. Yeah, that may be it. I hope this helps you guys, and I hope I touched on some stuff that maybe a lot of, because I know people have put videos like this out before, but these are just things that I've seen, and unique things that I've seen throughout the years. So yeah, and some of it may sound a little corny, like oh, that's what. That's the other thing. Big brain. Um, I just forgot it. Oh, yes. Be confident. And I know that sounds really corny, but be confident in you. Because if you're not confident in your abilities, you will not do well in college, all right? You need to have actually more confidence in yourself than what is actually reality, all right? So don't be like an asshole, but like be cocky. You gotta be cocky, all right? You can't, all right, you can't, you know, be walked all over and stuff in college. Like my first year in college, I immediately went up to the best person on the team and said, "You suck." All right? Even though he was like a 60-meter hammer thrower, like an 18-meter shot putter, and the school record in both of them, I went up to him like, "Man, you trash. I'll beat you today in practice." All right? I didn't. But you got to have that confidence. All right? Because one, that shows you won't be pushed around. Two is because if you don't have confidence in your technique and your abilities, you will not make very much progress at all. And I know that sounds very corny, but think about it. If you don't believe in yourself and what you can do, how are you going to do it? All right? That's the thing. So, but also, like, don't be like an asshole. Like, I talk trash all the time, but only when someone talked trash to me. Otherwise, I tried to help you guys as much, like my teammates as much as possible. The second you talk trash to me, it's game over. But, I'm a big trash talker, as a lot of my former teammates would tell you, hopefully. Um, and also, if you're talking trash, never mean it. Like, you know. But that's not even the subject of this video. But yeah, so be confident in yourself. And then another tip before I forget, if you have really bad people on your team in high school, don't don't be at their level. All right, don't train like them. All right, you can be friendly with them and all that. Like don't be like, "Oh, so you suck. Like get away from me. You're shit." All right, all right. Be courteous, to others and all that. But don't let, like, if you're like a 60-foot shot putter and then like someone that throws like 30 feet is dragging your training down and taking time away from your training, don't let that happen, all right? Because track is very unique in that it's an individualized sport, all right? And not a lot of things, not a lot of other people can affect what you do, except really your coach. Don't let your teammates affect you in a negative way. All right. So if they're holding you back, don't let that happen. All right. So like my high school coach used to let me cut in line and stuff for the ring, because he's like, oh, if you don't throw this far, if you throw further than this mark, you can cut them. All right, because I was really the only person on my team in high school that really was gonna go to college and compete after at that time. So my coach gave me ring time because he understood that concept, and that really helped me. All right. So, because the great thing about sports is not everyone's equal. All right. No matter what people say, the whole point of sports is it's not equal. It's everyone would throw the exact same distance. Everyone would have the same weight room numbers. All right. So not everyone's equal. You'll always be better. You'll be better than people. People will be better than you. All right. That's just the way it works. So yeah. So don't let worse people than you hold you back. Okay. And then this is what I wanted. Okay, I'm so big brain right now. All right. Um, God, I'm such an idiot. Another thing, I don't think I've touched on this before. Technique. Technique. Um, and for those of you who get that reference, good on you. Have solid technique. Don't rely on strength to throw, because that will not work with the college implements. All right. So don't if and what I mean by that is I've seen people stand throw 60 feet and then full throw like 62 feet. That should not be the case. All right, and that's in high school. All right, like my stand throw, maybe stood throw like 30 feet. All right, but I could full throw over 50. Okay, because I had good technique. All right, even though I was not strong, I could not squat 300 pounds. I couldn't bench like 225 in high school. I sucked in the weight room. I was trash. The one thing I could do, and the one thing I relied on, is speed and good technique in high school. All right, and yes, my technique is way better than what it was in high school, which it should be. But for high school, for my athletic shortcomings, like my first year competing, like my first year of throwing, I couldn't do a body weight squat. I actually went down to do a body weight squat and got stuck and had to have my teammates help me because I didn't have the leg strength to actually pick myself up because I was a fat blob. All right? So don't rely on strength. All right? Rely on technique. All right? Because you see, even on the pro circuit, like Zane Weir and Tom Walsh, 22-meter shot putters, and Adam Nelson. Now, granted, they're strong, but compared to people who throw at their kind of level, they're really weak, honestly. Like, a lot of them are not very strong. Like, there are a lot of NCAA like throwers who can probably beat them in the weight room. But the reason why they throw really far is because they focus a lot on technique and hitting positions consistently. All right, and that's a good thing. And that's also another thing that colleges look for is consistency. They look at your top end numbers, like your PRs, but they look at how consistent you are and how well you compete at meets. So if you have like one like dual meet where you throw like 200 feet in disc, but then at CIF you choke and throw like 140, that doesn't look good to colleges. All right. So I always say a general rule of thumb: if you're within a foot of your PB in shot, like every meet, you're good. And if you're within like 10 feet in discus, you're pretty solid. I would consider you consistent. All right. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And consistency happens with good technique and being able to repeat the good technique. All right. So that's what a lot of colleges look for as well, because they look at your results and all that, and they look at video of you, um, and maybe they'll come to see you in person. All right, so yeah, that's a big thing as well. I've been known to be a very consistent thrower, no matter the conditions. So that's something that was also very valuable to my college recruiting process as well. And yeah, and then yes, okay. I'm starting to remember the things I wanted to talk about. Oh my god, sorry, this video is so long. It's 30 minutes. I'm sorry about that. This will probably be my last tip. Don't rush your progress. All right, and what I mean by that is, especially this goes more for the weight room. Don't try and squat 500 pounds immediately. All right, it takes a long time. Okay, so I would I would recommend, and I know like people say like, oh, like you need a base number to throw this far and stuff like that. Like you need this amount of like this squat to throw this far. I personally don't subscribe that to a point. Like obviously you can't throw like 60 feet in a shot if you squat like 200 pounds. I've never heard of someone doing that ever. You got to be like, you know, pretty strong to do that. Even in high school, like you can't like you got to at least have like squat 300 pounds plus to do that at the very least. Okay, and yeah, like don't let weight room numbers dominate how far you throw. Like I was the weakest person on my high school and college team, but I would I'd beat everyone on my high school team pretty easily. And in college I would beat a lot of my teammates in throwing. Well, not really teammates, but my competitors, even though they were way stronger and way more athletic than me, for the simple fact that I had good technique. So technique will always be above strength. But you also need the certain amount of strength to hit technical positions. All right? But I would say the stronger you are, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have like a 500-pound squat and stuff. I've never heard someone say, oh, you're too strong to throw, because that's just stupid. That's like saying, oh, you're too fast to sprint. That's just dumb. Um, so another thing I would say is train smart. All right. So don't take like a billion throws a day. All right. Don't overtrain because I've seen people lose their get injured, a career injuries from overtraining. All right, and that kind of plays into don't try and get strong fast. All right, like lifting 3 times a day, is not going to help you, and it's just going to lead to injury. Because what really builds strength is recovery time. All right, it doesn't matter how much you like. If you lifted 3 times a day, and you hear people saying that, like Olympic weight